Welcome, everybody. Very happy to see you all. And today's topic, I think, is going to be very relevant to all of us. The habit number 4. Before getting into habit number 4, let's look at what's the sin associated with this habit, which is over controlling. Okay, so before we get into over controlling, let's just admit that we all do want to have control over what comes to us on our environment, the people around us. That's a normal, natural thing. First of all, we are afraid of death. That's one big thing, that big uncertainty that we are all facing. So it makes us feel safe and secure if we know what's happening and to be able to control it. We don't want to step on a poisonous snake by mistake and get bitten by it and die. But there are two other reasons why control feels good to us. One is it gives us a sense of uh, uh, competence. So when you master something or when you know a subject, then you feel in control of that. And that makes us feel good. And also another reason is personal autonomy. We all want to have personal autonomy. We want to feel like we are in charge of what comes to us, and that somebody else is not just dictating what we should be feeling and thinking. So in general, these two things do make us feel good, and hence we want to have control over our environment. Of course, the question is, do we really have control over our environment? But before that, let me give you an example of the pandemic. So when the pandemic started, I was in India, and the rule was that anybody who had the COVID infection had to go to the government hospital. They were not allowing any private hospitals to take COVID patients or to give them the COVID test. And that was extremely scary because government hospitals are known for, lack of hygiene and overcrowding and not getting enough attention and so on and so forth. So that was one reason. And another reason is the uncertainty of not knowing where the infection comes from, exactly how to handle it. There was like so much confusion. And that actually aggravated the fear of the virus itself. So the way to get some kind of mastery or some kind of sense of control was to get to know it as much as possible. Listen to the news, read doctors' reports, make inquiries about people in the community, like what are the rules, what's going on. And so to desperately try to get some sense of control by getting information. Eventually, then the government allowed private hospitals to allow the COVID test and also allow taking the patient. So that, in fact, made everything felt so much better because of the idea of personal autonomy. When you go to a private hospital, you feel like you have more charge. Then eventually, they in fact allowed home quarantine. And that was such a big relief because of the personal autonomy factor. So everything I'm saying gives us an idea of how we want to control our environment, and the idea of personal autonomy and getting some kind of mastery gives us a sense of control. And we are constantly trying to control our environment. We are creating rituals, we create rules in the house for family and friends, like some people may have take off your shoes when you come in the house, or there are ways in which we create so we keep our house tidy. So different people have different ways to have the sense of control, especially if you don't have that much control over your external environment, then you tend to control whatever you can. So control, in other words, feels good. And how do we, so what's the problem? One of the problems is that we typically try to control our environment and people. These are the two ways: environment and people in our environment. These are the two ways in which we try to control our environment. Actually, before I begin, I want to control a little bit. Can I ask you all to put me in speaker view? Because some people actually want to have eye contact, and I'm going to take off my glasses because I want to look at all of you directly. So if you can put me in speaker view and have the direct eye contact. That will actually give you also more sense of control. Okay, so we want to control our environment and people. That's the way we try to do it. Now let's go to people. How many of you try to control, let's say, your partner, your kids, or reactions from your friends, and so on and so forth? That's a very, very common thing to do. And how many of you have experienced some amount of anxiety, restlessness, frustration, anger, because people cannot be controlled, typically speaking. So I'll give you an example of my mother, who's 83 years old, active, fit, very fun to be with. However, she thinks that she should be telling her kids meaning including me, who's so much now, so much older now, to tell us what to do. Like it could be cooking, it could be in the environment, raising kids, or whatever it is. She feels the need to tell us what to do, and all her kids basically tell her, chill mom, we know what to do. And she gets frustrated. She says these days nobody wants to listen. And she says even her 6-year-old grandchild doesn't want to listen. The truth is, it's not these days, because even when she was younger, I know that she didn't really like her in-laws, for example, telling her what to do. But the times were different, culture was different, and so she didn't express it. She kind of kept it to herself, and she was frustrated, and she would say something in front of me. At that time I was the oldest child. So I know that being controller, being told what to do, is not something people appreciate. It's really hard to do. It can create conflicts in relationships. Of course, if you are wanting advice or wanting something from a person and you ask them and they tell you what to do, that's wonderful. But I'm talking about trying to control what we feel, or what is it that makes us feel good, by controlling other people's actions and other people's thoughts. And that typically doesn't work. Not only that it doesn't work, it can be detrimental to happiness. It can literally break relationships. Second thing, environment. So we try to control our environment, again, as I said, by creating rituals and all these kinds of things wherever we have control. But let's face it, even when we feel in control, it's kind of illusion of control in some sense. The pandemic is like a glaring example that we really don't know what's happening, unless you were Bill Gates or some scientist, working in the lab on infectious diseases. You didn't know what was coming, and even they may not have thought about, okay, when and how it was going to affect the whole world. So it has kind of given us this idea of, or has taught us a lesson that although we feel we want to be in control, we don't have control over the external environment as much as we like. And more often than not, it creates extreme frustration, anger, and restlessness, anxiety, and all these kinds of things. So to accept that we don't always have control, and the ability to go with the flow, sometimes at least, it kind of makes sense. But that takes us to the happiness habit number 4. And I'm going to ask Raj to explain what are the ways in which maybe we have some choice of gaining control, and what are the do's and don'ts. So Raj, over to you.
Thank you very much, Swati. I must say that, admit at some level that I've been multitasking. I've been responding to things in the chat box and listening to you.
Uh-huh.
Um, just so you know, so I don't know if I fully paid attention to everything you said earlier, but I think that toward the end you were saying that you'd like me to talk a little bit about the antidote to being overly control seeking. Correct? Okay,
Yes,
so.
and the do's and don'ts.
Do's and don'ts. Okay. As Swati mentioned, we seek control because it seems to give us a little bit of predictability about the future. It mitigates our general kind of existential angst. We are the only species that know we're going to die, right? And that is a very threatening thought. And having some level of control makes it a little bit easier for us to go through life. Variety of reasons why we seek control. And that control seeking tendency often backfires. And when we control people, they don't like it, they show psychological reactance. When we try to control outcomes and we are desperate for outcomes to work out exactly the way we want them to, it often is a recipe for frustration and misery rather than happiness. So what is the antidote to it, given that we seem to be kind of hardwired, it's kind of adaptive at some level to have control? Okay, so here's the thing, right? I mean, there are two universes of control. One is the external world, other people and events and outcomes and so on. And then there is the internal world, control over our own mind, over our own feelings, over our own thoughts and behaviors. And here the word control has a wrong connotation. I think that the ability to regulate, I prefer the word regulate, self-regulate, regulating your mind, regulating your feelings, and making your mind your friend in a sense. And if you have that internal control, then your happiness is no longer as susceptible to having or not having external control. Okay, so that's actually a pretty deep statement. Maybe I should repeat it. If you have enough internal control, ability to regulate your own feelings and thoughts and behaviors, then lack of external control will not be as disturbing. It's not as if you won't seek that external control. You won't want other people to behave a certain fashion, or you won't want certain events to unfold. But the link between having other people behave the way you want to, or outcomes working out the way you want to, and your happiness will be severed. Okay, so you're no longer as susceptible emotionally to external world cooperating with you, because your happiness is under your control, right? And that's a beautiful state to be in, because not only does it make you more stably happy, it also increases, ironically, the extent of control you have over external events, over other people, and over outcomes. Because people like people who don't want to control them, um, and at the same time are coming from an emotionally stable place when they do provide advice or suggestions, right? And so if you can manage that, the balance of having sufficient internal control, so that when you do want to change the world, when you do want to persuade other people to do the things that you'd like them to do, then they actually want to obey you, want to follow your advice, and think of you as a visionary or a direction provider, and so on. And so in a nutshell, that's it, right? The ability to gain internal control is the antidote to being overly externally control seeking. And in the context of this, a couple of do's and don'ts, right? One thing that you might think, if you're completely in control of your emotions and thoughts and behaviors, and you can be happy no matter what, you might think that other people might take advantage of you, right? They may say, hey, oh yeah, Raj is always going to be happy, so what, let's just screw him, let's just dump a lot of work on him, and so on. So there might be a little bit of fear that taking that level of internal control is going to make you a little bit of a puppet in other people's hands. People are going to take advantage of you. For those who have progressed on this path, that that's not the truth. That's not going to happen. In fact, people are more likely to take advantage of you the more unstable you are emotionally, right? The more you kind of fluctuate in terms of your happiness and unhappiness and misery and anger, etc., the more other people take advantage of you. Okay, that's one thing to note. The second thing that is an important thing to remember here is that in the desire to regulate your emotions, it's very important not to use what's called a self-serving bias strategy, which is to put down other people so as to feel good yourself. That's a very cheap way to make yourself feel good. Let's say that you play a game of tennis and you lose that game. It's very easy to blame the external environment and say that, oh yeah, I lost because I was feeling tired, I didn't get good sleep, or the racket was bad. And when you win, to kind of take all the credit for yourself, saying that, okay, it was my superior ability that made me win against the other person. So that way of approaching life, where you're putting down other people or putting yourself up in order to feel good, is not good. And there are many reasons why you can argue why it's not such a good thing. But even from the perspective of being able to maintain your happiness over a long time, that's not good, because other people are not going to like you as much, and you're likely to become delusional in your thinking if that is your only strategy for making yourself feel good. Okay, so when good things happen, gratitude. When bad things happen, self-compassion. Okay, so if you can remember that, then you're going to be much more stably happy and much more able to regulate your own emotions. And the last thing that I'll say here is that some people might argue that why take this internal control? Why regulate your emotions? Why not be natural? Why not go with the flow and be angry when you want to be angry, be happy when you can be happy? I totally agree, right? If you're already thinking like that, that's great, right? But surely you have some moments in your life when you wish that your emotions were under your control. Let's imagine a scenario where you're in a new place, okay, and you've never visited that place before, and so already it's unfamiliar. And then you have a very, very important meeting coming up the next day, next morning, and the best thing that can happen to you is that you get a good night's sleep in the hotel room, right? In this scenario, you'd obviously like to have the ability to kind of make your racing mind slow down a little bit so that you can become calm and tranquil and get a good night's sleep. And yet, I think many people can relate to this. When there is high pressure on you, when the consequences are big, that's when it's so difficult to take, to relax, right? So in those moments, it would be awesome to have the ability to regulate your emotions. So that's all I'm saying. Surely there are moments in which you would love to have that internal control. And surely there are many, many moments when you would like to go with the flow and experience whatever is happening, right? In those moments that you want to experience, maybe sadness, anger, etc., go for it. But in those moments when you would like to change the negative emotion into a more productive, positive state, then if you have that internal control, then you'll be able to do it, and you'll recognize this is one of the best skills that you can have, the ability to regulate your own emotions. It's like, I draw the analogy of going and working out at the gym and becoming strong, physically strong. Doesn't mean that every time you encounter anybody you're going to get into a fight, right? And beat them up just because you're strong. But if you do get into a fight situation, then at least you're strong, right? Or maybe that's a wrong example. Forget about fighting, but let's say that you have to lift something heavy. At least you're able to do it because you're strong, right? So that's the idea, to use it whenever it's appropriate, but not necessarily always rely on it. Okay, with that, I'll stop. I covered a lot of material there, but hopefully it kind of made some sense at least. And of course, toward the end, if you have any questions, you can ask, and Elena will ask on your behalf.
Yeah, so we will leave a lot of time for question and answers. And in the scenario you expressed, Raj, that why not just do or feel whatever you want in the moment. So, and it's true, some people do choose that. One thing that may suffer because of that is relationships. That, the people in your environment, if you care about if they are, if their sense of well-being and love and connection, the habit number 3 may get affected if you are just expressing whatever you want whenever you want. So that's one point I want to make. But now let's do an exercise, and then we'll do our meditation. So the exercise is, I'm going to describe 3 different scenarios to you. Choose any one or maybe all of them. And I want you to answer uh, 4 questions. Okay. Question number 1 is, what thoughts come to your mind when you hear this scenario? What thoughts? Question number 2 is, what do you feel when you have these thoughts? Question number 3 is, do you think there will be any action you will do, and what will that be? I'm not asking you ideal action or what would be good. I'm asking you just as your first reaction, or your whatever your natural tendencies are, what would be the action you would take? And the number 4 is, what do you think would actually work? If you were to choose the right action, effective action, what would you choose? All right. So thanks, Elena, for putting that out there. So, okay. So um, situation number 1, let's say you have a house and you have a lawn in front of the house, and your neighbors, when they take the dogs for a walk, a lot of times they use your lawn to let the dog do their business, like pee and poop or whatever on the lawn. And you don't like it, and you in fact put up a sign there saying, no dogs or whatever, with like a cross over a dog and all that, but that didn't really help that much. And you especially saw one of your next door neighbors taking the dog out there, and so you emailed the neighbor and told that neighbor, like, do not do it, like, don't appreciate it, etc., etc., gave reasons. You were tough. So for 2-3 weeks, there was nothing and it seemed to have worked. But then after 3 weeks, you see a dog poop in your lawn. You don't know who it is, but you see that and you suspect your neighbor, you still don't know. And obviously, like something is, there's some feelings that you're experiencing. There's some thoughts that are like sentences that are coming to your mind. There's some action you may take immediately. So if you can think about these three things first, and then number 4, we'll think about that later. Okay, scenario number 2, you move into a new apartment and on a Sunday, and you like that apartment, it has nice light, and you set up things over there. And on Monday, you realize that there is a car workshop not very far away from your apartment. And there is welding going on or something or the other, and that makes this really annoying and irritating screeching noise. And randomly in the middle of the day, you hear that, and you are like really bugged by it, and you're like, oh my God, how could I have not known this before I moved into this apartment? Okay, now what are the feelings, what are the thoughts, and what would you do? The number 4 about ideal action, let's postpone that. Okay, so situation number 3 is your partner, and you can replace partner with either parent or child or close friend. But let's say partner has a habit of, when something goes wrong, they push it on you. You feel blamed right away, like, it's your fault always. And that really pushes your button. And what are your feelings, thoughts, and what would you do? So I'll give you a few minutes. If there is any question, you can type it if you don't know what I'm saying, but basically these are the 3 scenarios. And you can write your reaction here if you want, or rather, more than action, also feelings, thoughts, if you want. Otherwise, you can just write it. So somebody's saying, repeat the 3rd scenario. Your partner, meaning your spouse, or maybe even business partner, when something goes wrong, they blame it all on you. You feel like blame for everything. They don't take responsibility, and that pushes your button. I'm going to give you a few minutes. I'm reading your reactions, but I don't want to say it. You can also write about what action you would take in any one of these scenarios. Please make sure when you are writing that you're writing to everyone and not by mistake sending me a personal message, unless there is something personal you want to say to me. Okay. Lot of reactions of various types. Okay, so as you can see in all these 3 scenarios, we don't have immediate control. And we do feel like some people are saying they feel cheated. very in scenario number one, very irritated, angry. Kevin is saying, I shoot the dog. I mean, I hope you won't actually do it, Kevin. Luckily, you don't live in the US, so you may not possess a gun. So that's lucky. But in any case, the point is that, yes, I mean, that's something that may come to our mind. Um, Disrespected, and some people are saying that they would take the dog poop. I don't know if they said it here, but I've heard this from people that they will take the dog poop and put it on the neighbor's front door to let them know what you're feeling or how it feels like. Um, some people are saying that, okay, the apartment situation, extreme stress, I've made mistake, I should have checked. So a lot of like, oh my God, how could I have done it? And sleep on it, worry about it, amazing that you become accustomed to. So I had actually a meditation student who when had this situation, and whenever she started meditating, she would in fact hear this noise even more intensely. And her question was, how do I deal with it? And we kind of decided that was like the best practice for her in some sense, that she could make into sound meditations where she actually listens to the sound and what reaction she has. So what an opportunity to know how to regulate your emotions and reactions. So whenever something like this happens, many people are saying it. There are like thoughts that come to our mind about personalizing it a lot of times, like how could they disrespect me, or how could I have not thought about this situation. So there is a lot of intense feelings that come to us, and whenever there are really intense feelings, if you think about the feeling, you know that the feeling comes because of thoughts that come to your mind. um, Even when you are intensely feeling positive, it may be because you're feeling pride and how I worked hard and all these kinds of things. But anyway, scenario three, somebody saying partner sometimes blames, but I think it becomes a bit of a blame game. If we do it to each other, think can be broken by actively not blaming him when here's more obvious blame. Yeah, okay. Yeah, so there are actions that actually may not get you the effective solution. How do you decide what is effective? That will happen, uh, possibly happen if you're able to regulate your emotions, if you're able to have some control over how intensely you feel and how impulsively you act. So if we practice non-reactivity, as in not immediate action, but to know what my feelings are, what my thoughts are, then if you get into that habit, then it is possible to regulate it. So for the dog thing, one person had said that, I don't care if my neighbor, because it's neighbor next door, no neighbor. So you don't want to get into, a lot of times people don't want to get into very conflicting, um, unfriendly relationship with the neighbor. It has consequences for your daily life. But some people may not care about it. They may think that it's okay, it doesn't matter. I have a right to tell them that they are not supposed to disrespect me and my space like this. I have very strong boundaries. Both these reactions are possible. Some people may choose to like communicate it nicely. Some people don't mind getting into habits. So the internal control is to have a choice, to know when it is sending you spiraling down. And the neighbor situation is one thing. Same thing may happen in your own home with your partner too, right? So to have the choice, to know that I can control my emotions and feelings the way I want, that if you have that, that in fact gets us ready for anything that comes to us. Then we are not as afraid. So have you noticed that the people who don't have that much control over their feelings are the one who become over controlling of others? So Raj, there is a really interesting study. I mean, by the way, what I really appreciate about your book is that everything we're talking about is backed up by different studies. It's not just, I have some God's message and I'm giving it to you. So in any case, there's this interesting study that people who are over controlling, if they are in a room, a crowded room, or a room that they don't like, they have actually physical distress, and they try to control it by sometimes saying something to the host, or taking some action, like they'll start cleaning up, or they will bring, like the birthday cake out immediately because they are very uncomfortable. And when I say this, a lot of people can say, oh yeah, I know that person. And or you yourself may be like that. You actually have sweaty palms and headache when you are in a room that you don't like. And not just that, not just being able to not control this, but taking an action that in fact may be detrimental for relationships, and not realizing that the other people have just as much right to say and do whatever they want. And like the dog poop, yeah, you have a right to tell the neighbor, but if you want to have a better relationship, the way you express it may be different than just expressing it with so much anger. So given that, now I'm going to actually uh, do a meditation with you guys. And for emotional regulation, this meditation in fact is I find it very effective. Again, you have to practice it. And in a way, although we'll do it in a meditation form today, it is something you can make into a habit, like when some intense emotion comes to you and you want to regulate it. First thing is to know what the feelings and thoughts are. That is the awareness of those things, because a lot of times we don't think about it. And then to regulate it. Okay, so this meditation is called RAIN, RAIN. Elena, I don't know if you can type it while I'm saying it. So R is for recognize. Recognize your thoughts and feelings. A is to allow or accept instead of resisting it or pushing it away. Just see, allow it. It's okay. It's okay to be there. I is for investigating it. And I'll tell you what investigating means when we do the meditation. And N is for a lot of N's, like not under my control, not me, not mine, and not the whole of me. So RAIN. N is for not, and what the nots are, we'll get into that. So you can say not as in NOT or KNOT, depends. So let's get into that meditation. So I'm going to invite you all to sit comfortably and hopefully close your eyes to allow you to go within yourself. So emotional regulation meditation called RAIN. Taking a few deep breaths, slow deep breaths. And with each breath, paying attention to the nourishment coming to us through the breath. A deep breath and paying attention to the energy that's coming to us. And now allowing the breaths to just go to their regular pace, wherever your body wants to go in terms of breathing, allowing that, just regular breaths. And now I'm going to invite you to choose any one of the three scenarios I described, or you may have your own scenario in mind from your own life where you didn't have control and there was conflict because of that. I'll give you a couple of minutes to choose which scenario you want to think about and allow that scenario to come to your mind, either from the three scenarios or something from your own life. And allowing it to come to your mind in its raw form as much as you can, allowing you to feel whatever it means to you, whatever the conflict is, the discomfort is, allowing yourself to feel it. And recognize the thoughts that come to your mind when you think about this scenario. Trying to focus only on that scenario. And if the mind is wandering around, that's okay. That's the nature of the mind. But bringing it back to experiencing and recognizing the thoughts that come to you because of this scenario. What are the thoughts? The sentences that represent these thoughts. Allowing yourself to pay attention to those specific sentences. And then allowing yourself to recognize the feelings that come to you because of these thoughts. Labeling these feelings, recognizing and labeling. I feel angry, I feel frustrated, I feel unrecognized, I feel misunderstood, I feel whatever it is that the feelings that are coming to you, to recognize these feelings and say it to yourself, the name of this feeling. It may be bunch of feelings or one prominent feeling. And there is nothing right and wrong, just honestly looking at what feelings and what thoughts are coming. Not to be afraid, not to feel you need to hide it because it is totally your own activity. And if there is any guilt or shame that's coming to you because of some of these feelings and thoughts, to know that it's all human and normal. And these are my feelings. So the next step is to allow it, to accept it. No need to resist, no need to push it away, no need to explain it away, no need to justify, just simply allowing it, accepting that's how I'm feeling, knowing that it's all human. And if there is any guilt and shame, to recognize there is guilt and shame, but not to be afraid of it if possible. I allow these feelings, I accept these feelings and thoughts. Allowing those thoughts and feelings to be there, and then investigate your body right now as you're feeling these thoughts and feelings. Are they getting reflected into your body? You may or may not be aware of it. Some may be very much in touch with the body and they may know how these feelings are showing up in the body. Some of you may not. But to investigate the body and see if there are any tough spots, any pressure you may be feeling in the chest or anything in the tummy, or maybe slightly tingling sensation anywhere, or shoulders tense or back hurting, whatever it is in the body, to notice, to investigate it, and then to relax these parts of the body. Either breathing into that part of the body or move a little bit to relax it, or consciously maybe relax the muscles as if there was a big burden on your shoulders and you're putting it away, relaxing the body. Relax the body. Relax the shoulders, relax the back. Take a deep breath into wherever you feel any tension. If you don't feel any tension or pressure in your body, then simply relaxing the body. Even then, even if it is not something you're noticing, investigating, after investigating, breathing in deep breaths and relaxing your whole body. Taking care of the body. And now to allow yourself to notice that it's not me and not mine. It's not the whole of me. It's not the whole of my life. Whatever thoughts and feelings that are distressing about these situations or the conflicts, to realize that it is not the whole of my life. And if there is any personalization like ego or pride is involved, then to realize it's not me and not mine. Not me, not mine, not the whole of me. There may be some part of you that is angry and frustrated. However, that's not the whole of you. There are a lot of other parts of our life and our mind that are maybe giving, maybe pleasant, maybe connecting, maybe thoughtful. So to realize that, to pay attention to that. So not me, not mine, not the whole of me, not the whole of my life. And I don't have total control over it. not me, not mine, not the whole of me, not the whole of my life, and I don't have total control over it. Again, taking a few deep breaths and paying attention to what we are saying in a deep way, allowing these messages to go deep and think about or feel it in your heart. Yeah, it's not me, not mine. It's not the whole of me, and it's not the whole of my life. There are a lot of other parts to me and to my life. And this particular situation, I may not have total control over it, but let me just recognize it, accept it, investigate it, and notice. It's like untying a knot. And now going back to our feelings and thoughts and noticing if they are the same or not. Have they reduced in their intensity? Is there any change in the thoughts? Going back to R, recognizing the feelings and thoughts, same scenario, and are the thoughts changed? And again, breathing in deep breaths, relaxing the body. And again, going back to the messages, not me, not mine, not my whole self, and not my whole life. And noticing if there is any intensity change in the feelings or if the thoughts are slightly different. And now we are going to get ready to leave this meditation. But before we do that, just wishing yourself that may I find an effective action to take care of this issue. May I find an effective action. Or it may have already come to you, but if it hasn't, may I find it. May I find my own resources to take care of this situation. And again, taking a few deep breaths. And getting ready to leave this meditation. So this meditation was mindfulness of your feelings and thoughts. And instead of reacting right away, to know that we have some control over it, little bit at a time, making it into a habit. And if you haven't already, you may want to switch to gallery view And if you have any comments on your own experience in this meditation or any question about any of the material, this is a good time to type it. And I can see right now there is a dog in my lawn. But
Is it poop?
I know that's what I was trying to see. No, they didn't. They just stayed there for a few seconds and went. I don't have any sign in my
This was
lawn.
a
Anyway,
personal example. Like it's actually.
it became personal.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, so any question, anything, and Elena, if you can take over and maybe pose some of the questions, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Swati. Thank you for the exercise. Maybe we can start with this question related to the exercise. So there's a question from Shankar. So when we only say this feeling is not me, are we not choosing to ignore the problem at hand?
That's a great question. In fact, I'm not. We are not saying these feelings are not me. If you remember, I said it's not whole of me. So all feelings and thoughts are very valid because they are coming to us and they are human, they are normal, and it's really important to recognize them. We are recognizing what the feelings and thoughts are. If we feel that they are valid and we need to respond to them, then we choose it. But what the last part, the N is saying is it's not the whole of me, to recognize that. Because what happens is, let's say that if you're feeling really angry, it almost feels like that's the whole of me. I'm an angry self. But it's not just the anger. There may be some other times when you may have felt other feelings. To recognize the entire landscape of your own mind instead of just focusing only on that one feeling and getting all worked up with it. That's what it means. In fact, it's so important in mindfulness. It is not about suppressing it, not about ignoring it. It's no suppress, no express, just simply observe. That's what you do in the beginning. Then you choose to take action based on what you think makes sense to you.
Great. And also a question from Winid. When we say we pass this feeling, what feelings do we focus on then?
We pass this, what's that?
Feelings. So what we
Yeah,
have to focus on then
we pass the
instead of
feelings
I
instead
think
of the
he
feeling.
wanted probably to say, so if we don't want to focus on those feelings, so what else do we need to focus on instead?
Yeah, so we are not, it's
I
not
think
about,
actually, I mean, if I understand his question
yeah.
correctly, you were saying that when you do the whole rain thing, then in the end, the feelings kind of mitigate and maybe you don't feel them anymore.
Or
Uh,
maybe feel it less intensely, not the same feelings. It may change wherever it goes. Yeah.
then what do you focus on? I mean, maybe I'm mistaken in interpreting his question, but I think that's what he
Yeah.
means. If the feelings
Yeah.
pass,
So,
yeah.
yeah, if the feelings pass and if you don't have any need to go and get angry with your neighbor or move right away from the apartment, if there is no action that is necessary, then that's fine. If you're saying, what do we focus on in the meditation? If the feelings are changed, then to notice that. See, you are noticing and observing your feelings, and once you are done with the meditation, you will know what action you want to take. Or it may take some time before you know the action that you want to take. I actually want to say one thing: the relaxing of the body is an extremely important step. And a lot of times people overlook it or they are like, okay, fine. But as you do it more and more, you'll see it really helps to regulate the emotions. The idea of relaxing the body and the cortisol and the adrenaline that's actually affecting our body, the relaxing, the act of relaxing can break that cycle. So it's a very important thing that we don't pay as much importance to. I just want to say that mindfulness focuses on the body a lot.
So a couple of
And so,
things that occur to me very quickly. One
uh-huh.
is that
Mhm.
indeed that question was, the when the feelings are intense, you know what the focus is. They're intense,
Yeah.
and it's very important to accept it, allow it, and experience it fully.
Mm.
etc. And hopefully it mitigates, and then maybe ideally it is even zero. I mean, you no longer feel that anger, frustration, whatever it was. At that point, what do you focus on? I actually, think that there's lots to focus on. It's not as if you don't have any feelings at any moment in time. I mean, every moment there are millions of chemical reactions going on all over your body. There's electrical impulses being sent from your brain to your eyes, and back and forth. And in a way, it's a beautiful thing to be able to not have one intense feeling to focus on, and just focus on everything that's going on all over your body, which is obviously going on all the time. Food is being digested, you're breathing in, the air coming in is a little bit cooler than the air going out. And if you really focus enough, which I was lucky enough to do in a Vipassana meditation retreat, you can actually feel the air go all the way into your lungs. And it almost feels like, I don't know if I was imagining this, but I could almost feel the air being absorbed at the layer between my lungs and my blood vessels, kind of a thing. The oxygen being absorbed. And once you settle into that state of being completely in touch with the body's sensations without a really active mind, then it's a really blissful feeling. And just focus on that feeling. That's what I would suggest.
And also, when your feelings actually get somewhat like mitigated, diluted, whatever, you make better decisions rather than making a choice of what to act and how to act when it is like a very intense feeling. And somebody said Tara Brach's rain meditation. So this rain meditation comes from her work. She's the one who called it rain meditation. I think it is used in a couple of different ways. So excellent for emotional regulation. To first of all to recognize it, yeah. So and somebody saying that walking, I guess, or doing something else. And yeah, that will help you. But the only, yeah, and sometimes you mindfully may decide to divert your attention, like we said that last time also. But a little bit beware of it. If you're just simply suppressing the problem, ignoring it, it will show up somewhere else in a more intense way. But at that time, in order to cool it off a little bit, you may want to need to walk or divert your attention, and then can think about the problem in a better way. But you have to know what the feelings and thoughts are, even when you're diverting your attention. Elena, is there something else?
I think the last one related to the exercise is investigate, mostly about investigating physical feelings in your body. This is from Tom.
Yeah. The reason I said, yeah, investigate, I am associating it with the physical feelings. Yes, in this particular way, the way I'm using rain meditation, because as I said, body is very important.
Okay, we had also questions at the beginning from Kevin. He was asking that it's difficult. It takes a lot of effort to manage state of awareness. And well, it was mostly a comment. And there was a question about internal control from Josefina. Would I think it will take some time. How do you learn to have internal control?
Yeah. So I'm going to ask Raj to answer it. I mean, just one thing I want to point out that yes, all these things do take effort and practice. First of all, you have to believe in that philosophy of gaining internal control. You have to have that as something you want to learn and you want to do it. And then there are ways like there are few ways in which you can do emotional regulation. Raj, do you want to say anything about this?
Yeah, so that's a great point, Yusupina. And I think underlying your point is that, hey, I'm impatient to have that internal control. I wish I had it, but it seems like a long journey, and I'm frustrated at how long it is, etc. And it's similar for many other domains of mastery. You want to, say, become really good at music or math, learn to play the guitar, bodybuilding, it doesn't matter what the field is. Every field, it's the same thing. It takes a lot of time to become a master. Um, the ways in which you kind of make it easy for yourself are as follows. Okay, one thing is to take it one step at a time. right? I mean, that's very, very important. Let's say that you want to build a great body. I mean, you don't go to the gym and start lifting the weights that Arnold Schwarzenegger lifts. You're going to, lose all interest in it and be completely demotivated. So in the context of emotional control, internal control, the question is, can you regulate your feelings for a scenario that you use to completely lose control of your emotions? Okay. So when Swati suggested these three scenarios, one of the things that she did not explicitly mention, but perhaps you guys, implicitly kind of, thought about it in selecting the scenario, is that you don't want to select a scenario which is so, it's touching such a raw nerve that the intensity of the emotions is so high that you can't do the rain practice with it. Okay, you have to pick something that is commensurate with your current levels of lack of internal control. Right on the border of, okay, there are things that I can very easily control. Let's say there's a dog barking in the neighborhood, I can easily ignore it. It doesn't irritate me. To something that is right on the edge of what I can control. Okay, maybe it's a neighbor's dog pooping, and maybe that's too much. Okay, in that case, don't pick that example, right? Similar to picking a weight that's commensurate with your current strength. You don't want to pick a 25-pound weight when you can only lift 10 pounds. So pick a weight, pick a scenario that's right on the edge of your ability to control something. And once you master that, then you go on to the next step. And once you master that, then you go on to the next step, and so on. And we talked a little bit about this idea of flow in a previous session, right? I mean, flow happens when you're faced with a challenge that's at the right level, at the level where you can just, if you try, put everything behind it, you can succeed. But it's not at a level where even if you put everything, you can't succeed. That's going to make you anxious. It shouldn't be at the level where it's easy either, right? Then you're going to be bored. So that's the idea, that you need to kind of make this, kind of gamify it almost, and take it as a life's journey, because at every step of improving in your internal control, you're going to see benefits, by the, by the truckful, actually. At every step, you're going to see that you're better liked, you're better able to make, good decisions, and so on and so forth. So if you treat it like that it's a game, it's a life's journey. It's not like something that, one day I'm, fully a master of myself and that's it, life is over, right? I mean, it's a full life's journey, and take it one step at a time, gamify it, and be patient. And, if you do that, then I think that you will definitely succeed.
Raj, I want to add one thing. I have found that I have been practicing mindfulness for many years, and non-reactivity and emotional regulation. Even then, there are times, even now, I do react to things very much in the moment and all that. But I have like, for example, the person who really pushes my button is my partner, my spouse. You are laughing. I think you can identify with it, most people.
Uh-huh.
But but the mindfulness practice, there's one way in which it has changed. The frequency of my immediate reactions is not as much. Another big thing is, even when you react immediately, you can't regulate it. Afterwards, you have a choice. And because of being aware of all these things, the rain meditation, afterwards I can, quickly think about my feelings, thoughts, and think about, does it make sense, what do I effectively want, and I can go back and talk about it again in a different way, or sometimes may even apologize, or sometimes forgive the other person, and as a result the relationship changes. So if you are not able to do it in the moment, learn to think about it afterwards. And on that, I think pretty much we do have control. And then a little bit change at a time, like Raj said.
Yeah, I mean, I think, my experience has been similar. And once you become firmly rooted in the meditation, and you have to do it every day, if you're only doing it just once a week with us, which is still good than not doing it, but you have to take it back with you and do it at least for 5-7 minutes. Even if it's only for 5 or 7 minutes every day, it's vastly superior to not doing it at all, even though it doesn't seem like a lot of time. And once you do it for a while, say 6 weeks at the very least, certainly 6 months or a year, you'll see a big improvement, and you'll settle down to a point where you can start to appreciate where other people are coming from and why are they behaving in the way that they are. And so there's a lot more compassion and love in responding to them in a situation, rather than just this kind of, the first layer of anger, which often is the trigger for a response and is often very counterproductive. But you're willing to go beyond it and pierce it and go into the layer of, okay, why are they doing, why are they reacting the way they are, and why are you then wanting to react the way that you wanted to? And all of this happens, by the way, very, very quickly, right? It's not as if you're taking an hour to think through all this. It just happens instinctively almost, and then vast majority of the times you're reacting in a way that's much more productive. And by the way, I should mention here that oftentimes the most productive reaction is to do nothing, but that nothing is not an apathetic, indifferent nothing. It's a nothing that has been arrived at through a lot of processing of complexity and nuances, and it's a doing nothing with a lot of gravitas to it, and the other person recognizes it as well. Yeah, intentional nothing. Yeah.
Thank you.
Elena,
Now we
I
have
think
a
somebody, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
maybe we can group a few questions here. Well, we have from Kevin, who's asking, so do we accept everything? When do we eventually act? When we take action? There's also a question from Rachi. He says that, so there's a conflict in my mind in practicing these ideas, because if everything is in my control, I can be okay with anything and everything. So then how do I have a choice? How do I make decisions if I can learn to be okay with anything? And
Yeah.
also in this same group, question from Businas is, so decisions, he says that decisions in the future have two consequences, good and bad. And so what happens, what should I do if I always feel that bad things are going to happen rather than good things?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and if I could just add a little comment on my side, I think that
Yeah, please.
I think that the choice is actually in the way you interpret, because what is reality? Reality is just our interpretation of the things. It's just like, if I don't have, for some reason, hot water in my apartment, and of course it makes me feel sad and bad, and I want to take a shower, but I only have cold water. I can't control this at the moment because, for example, something broke and it's a big building. It's not my problem. It's the problem of the entire building. Nobody has hot water. So I can have a choice. I can get upset about not having hot water and having to take a cold shower and suffering and thinking how I'm going to catch a cold because of that cold shower and all the bad things. And that's going to make me feel bad. We just did this exercise, the meditation exercise, where I can investigate how I feel, where that discomfort is felt in my body. That's definitely is going to not contribute into my immune system, strength of my immune system and my well-being and my peace and all the things. So that's not a good thing to do to myself. I don't want to do that to myself, to my body, to my health, to my peace. I have a choice also thinking that, okay, there are people who actually love taking cold shower. And it's not that I'm going to do this every day. It's just something temporary. So I can look at this as, okay, that's something different. I can take a cold shower. And I know people do this because they want to stay healthy, actually. So I can even look at this as something that can give me good health rather than a chance to catch a cold. So I'm going to take this cold shower today. That's fine. It's going to be something different. And interestingly, just because of that interpretation, I might even really strengthen my immune system and have better mood and just not even ruin my day at all for that little thing. That's where I see the choice.
Yeah, right. And then you're absolutely right, Elena. So I would like to say that the thoughts and feelings you have and action, these two things, let's separate these two things. Okay, so just because you have thoughts and feelings, if you don't have intense thoughts and feelings, does not mean you don't take any action. And even not taking an action is, let's say, a type of action. So there is we can't prescribe. This is not about prescribing what's the right action and what's the wrong action, because it will again depend on what you think is effective and what you want. Do you want love and connection, or do you want to set boundaries? So that is a choice you are making. The point is that to have control over whatever emotions and feelings you are experiencing by ability to make a choice. So it is the ability to make a choice. So doesn't mean, so I think when you hear it in the beginning, people feel restless. Does that mean I don't feel anything? I don't have, then what's the point? Or, like, then do I have any choice on what I act upon? So let's separate feelings and thoughts from actions. And your feelings and thoughts will influence your action. And when you change your feelings and thoughts, then your actions, you have more choice of taking it in something that gives you the effect you want. You have more control over it. The other thing is, some people are asking for referrals or references for mindfulness and also self-compassion, mindfulness of feelings and self-compassion. I just want to say Kristen Neff has a website called selfcompassion.org. It's an excellent website with resources on meditations, all the research studies, exercises, and everything. When it comes to mindfulness, also, there are many resources. I mean, one obvious one I would suggest is my own YouTube channel, plugging it over there. It's called To Meditate. And I have tutorials. If you Google To Meditate Swati Desai, you'll get this channel on YouTube.
And two is
I have
the
made my,
number two, yeah, not you.
yeah, number 2, meditate. Yeah, no space. And I had done, Raj, a 6-week long meditation camp as a bonus to Coursera. That camp is available on my website, swatidesai.com. And it's half an hour every day for 6 weeks. And it covers everything you basically want to know about mindfulness, like feelings, thoughts, body, compassion, self-compassion, all kinds of things.
Okay. We have also a question from Anna. What might be the strategy if a situation requires to act and respond fast?
What's that? Can you say that again, Elena?
What might be the strategy if you need to make a decision, respond, and react fast?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And there is a discernment in that. There are some what I call 911 situations, because in the US, when there is an emergency, you call 911 when you need to respond really fast. Yeah. So just that time, maybe if you practice this rain on a regular basis, then even in emergency situation, you'll probably rush to a more effective solution. But otherwise, I mean, if your child is running into the traffic, you are not going to think about what do I feel, what do I think at that time. You are going to go and pull him out of the traffic as soon as you can, right? Yeah. So the discernment is also something, the wisdom, it comes from discernment. I love the serenity prayer that you had, Raj. I saw bits of it. Yeah, that whatever I have control over, I will control. And if I don't have control over it, I'll accept it. But the last part is important. May I have the wisdom to decide when to do what?
Well, we have, I forgot really who that question was from. Well, it's not really a question, more like a comment that I always get interrupted when I start meditating or when I start my mindfulness session, including this one. I guess, well, maybe we can, if you can somehow make time for that, that would be great. But if this is inevitable, well, accept it without getting frustrated, just like the cold shower, I guess. The other 2 weeks ago, I had terrible noise. My neighbors were making noise. I couldn't work, and I just imagined the situation very vividly when you talked about the second situation, Swati, about the noise, and I just had to take action. So had to go somewhere outside to work because I thought, okay, I don't want to get angry. I don't want to have bad feelings inside me. I have to take action. I got to leave. Or I actually did both. I talked to the people to know when it's going to end, the noise. But because I couldn't work, I just went to work in a cafe.
Right. No, that's a good way to resolve this situation, I think. the idea is, what is detrimental to our sense of well-being and happiness. That's basically what it is. Not, doesn't mean you don't do anything and there is no way to control external world and so on. In fact, Jonathan Haidt, who wrote this really well-known book, Happiness Hypothesis, he talks about how happiness comes from both internal control and external control. So whenever it is possible, if it is possible for you to move to another apartment, yes, do that. But a lot of times it may not be possible. We have less control over external, but we have more control, possibly more control over how we react, and to have our own happiness and well-being in mind. That's the main thing.
Talking about control, I just remembered my friend who is afraid of airplanes just because he's not in control. That's what he described to me. He said, I don't like flying on the plane because there's no way I can get out when I want to. I can't just say stop and I want to leave. And so this feeling of lack of control doesn't let him enjoy these large flights of 12 hours. Imagine so much stress. And I told him, but think about how you feel during those 12 hours. That's a torture you're doing to yourself, feeling, this nervousness. So that I don't know, it's a whole topic about flights and having fear.
That's a very common, fear of flying is a very common thing. I know, I would take a sleeping medication. I mean, that's one of the ways in which you can control your fear. But no, that is true. In fact, the statistic shows that driving a car is more dangerous than flying a plane. But knowing that doesn't really help. Right. So how do you gain internal control?
Sorry, we are at 11:18 and we should close shop soon. But I also see a lot of comments and questions about, when I sit down to meditate, that's when my family intrudes. Meal times are the worst, and they don't seem to understand. They kind of quote unquote forget that I told them that I was going to sit down for meditation, and they're vacuuming around me or disturbing me and so on. How do you kind of overcome it? That's an extremely frustrating feeling, right? And that too coming from close family who should understand, who should be cooperative, who should be your friends and so on. And oftentimes you also jump to the conclusion, or not jump, but I mean, you arrive at the conclusion that they're doing it somewhat deliberately. It's almost as if, they want to deny you this thing because maybe they're not into it, right? And they think it's a waste of time. I think of that as a challenge that's too big for you. I mean, you can kind of conceive of that challenge as another challenge on which you practice the rain, right? And hopefully it's productive, and the feelings of frustration, anger, etc., and the thoughts associated with it, that they're doing it deliberately, etc., kind of quieten down. But it may be so intense that you can't do it, right? And so the challenge is just too big for you. And for the moment, at least, until you get to the point where you can cope with it and you're able to do the rain on it, you have to find another solution, I feel. Maybe just get out of that spot. Maybe go and even sit in your car, right, on the driveway, so that you have internet access. It's not too far from your Wi-Fi, or find a nearby coffee shop that's quiet, etc. But you're going to have to find
in a bench or in a park on the bench.
Yeah, well, park. Yeah, the problem with the park might be lack of Wi-Fi, but yeah, if you can do that there because you have data that allows you to do it, then find another solution to it.
And one way, it depends on if you have anger problem. I'm thinking with this specific issue. Okay, so if you have anger problem, if your family is always accusing you of being angry, this may not work. But otherwise, little bit of showing anger to the family and intimidation sometimes does work. So anger is not always bad. I don't want to make it sound like, never express any anger, never be tough. So think about what's effective.
Yeah, but control the anger rather than the anger controlling you.
Right. You make the choice. That's the
Alrighty, I think we should end here because it's 11:20 actually. So 5 minutes over time, which seems like a norm now, right? We do go a little bit over time. Thank you as usual, Swati. Thank you so much, Elena. Very, very nice of you guys to do this. And I also want to thank especially all the participants. Take care, guys. Have a great, great weekend. And I'll see you guys next week.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, email. Any other questions or comments, please do email. And thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.